Hey everyone, welcome to Out of Spec Guide. I'm Max, and I want to talk to you today about the most relevant affordable EV in the market still for buyers who want an affordable EV. It's the Chevy Bolt. New or used, these are a great deal. Unfortunately, General Motors announced this year that they are killing it, at least for now. Then they announced that they're going to make a new Chevy Bolt, which is exciting, but that new Bolt won't be coming out until at least 2025. So the long and short of it is they were only going to make the Chevy Bolt for this year until like November 7th, but it seems like that production date has been extended until December. So in this video, I want to talk to you about one, why the Bolt is still so special in our current car market and so unique for the US specifically. And then I want to talk too about, okay, you're convinced you want to buy a Bolt. Do you go new or used right now as we enter the kind of final phase of the Bolt as we know it? Take this to be somewhat of a final buyer's guide of sorts. So let me tell you all about why the Bolt is so special and what you should do if you're still looking to buy one. The reason the Bolt is so special is, frankly, it's just affordable. It has good range. It has DC fast charging, even though it's not the quickest DC fast charging. It has it. It had a recall several years ago that was very scary, where batteries were catching on fire, but those batteries were replaced under warranty for free, and many used Chevy Bolts now have a new upgraded battery. My girlfriend recently bought a used Chevy Bolt for the 20 grand zone, which led her eligibility for the used federal EV tax credit because it was under 25 grand, and she got a rebate from her energy company Excel in Colorado for 3 grand as well. So that was a specific utility company incentive. But even buying a used one, she was able to get incentives. The new Chevy Bolts have been an amazing deal because they are eligible for an incentive as well. So new Chevy Bolts have $7,500 full tax credit eligibility. Their price was dropped by several $1,000s for 2023. And I think this, all of this combined made the Bolt such a killer value this year. And it's why people were thrown through such a loop when GM announced they were canceling it, which they later kind of, basically said that, oh, we're actually going to make a new one, but that new one's not coming for a while. So the Bolt is still so special, and being well under 40 grand, under 30 grand for new trims, if you're lucky enough to find one still with those base configurations, that's very unique. In our current EV market, the closest thing I can think of is the Kona EV, which you can get an existing Kona EV, but they're a little more expensive than Bolt, and they are no compatibility with Tesla superchargers announced yet between Hyundai and Tesla, the way GM has. And then the Kona Electric is the new one is probably going to be more expensive. We're thinking like $35,000-ish based off the European pricing and details of that. The Kona has some advantages. It charges better than the Bolt. If you want a little more of a crossover feel, it's got it, but the Bolt has an EUV model. And I should mention, neither of these cars, the Hyundai Kona nor any of the Chevy Bolts, have all-wheel drive available. So not a huge functional difference in terms of power and quickness and acceleration. Very similar front-wheel drive setups here, 200-ish horsepower motors. So the Chevy Bolt has been very simple, right? There's been an EV and an EUV trim on new ones. That's been the case since I believe about model year 2021. So the Bolt, still very special in this market. The only really used affordable EV you can get that, unlike, let's say, a Nissan Leaf or other affordable options we have in the US market, has a somewhat modern charging standard, is capable with plenty of range and just a pretty darn good value with standard equipment. And if you're buying a new Bolt, let's get into the buyer's guide for that. So you can buy an EV or an EUV. EUV is marginally more expensive, a little bit more space, slightly more SUV styling or crossover styling, whereas the EV is more of a plain hatchback. There's not that big of a functional difference. They have the same battery, same motors, all of that. As a result of being slightly larger, the EUV gets slightly less range. Still very similar, but just so you know, if you're willing to, if you want to spend the least amount of money, go for the EV. However, if you get the Bolt EUV, one big advantage is assuming you spec it with Premier package, which is the next trim up. It starts with an LT, but if you get a Premier, then you can add on Super Cruise, which is honestly one of the best adaptive driving systems for highways. Lets you basically hands-free drive on pre-mapped highways, many of them in the US supported. It's one of the best systems for this. It does cost, on top of the Premier EUV trim though, an extra $2,200, and then you can add the sunroof package. Unless you're really hankering for these features though, I think once you get this new Bolt into like $35,000, $37,000 price range, as you would if you max this EUV out, it starts to lose a little bit of its specialness because you're approaching 40 grand, which gets you a lot more in EV world, even new right now. So I would say try to steer well south of 37, 38 grand if possible. Really, magic happens if you can get the normal Bolt EV. However, all of these are eligible for the tax credit, so you are going to get up to $7,500 as a tax credit, assuming you have that income to have that tax eligibility, which is really sweet. And you might have other state incentives, like in Colorado, where you can trade in your old used gas vehicle and get a rebate towards buying a new electric car. So the Bolt new would be eligible for that. If you get the base Bolt, there's 1LT and 2LT. If you want adaptive cruise control, I believe you're going to need to get 2LT and then add on a package for that. You can't get adaptive cruise control with the 1LT. If you get the 1LT, you also have to add a package to get heated seats. 2LT does come standard with leather heated seats and heated steering wheel, but to get the heated stuff in the 1LT, you do have to add it as a package. So that's buying a new Bolt, and you can still buy them. Like I said, they're making them through December 7th. So on Chevy's configurator, as you can see here, you can build the Bolt you want. As you kind of configure it, it's going to identify matches near you. So you can see in my zip code, it's found some matches. Here's an exact match for the current trim I have. It says in transit. That's the case for a lot of these. Many of these are spoken for. People know it's running out of production. They still want bolts. And so dealers are, in my experience, selling them a little bit above MSRP. So I'm not gonna say you can expect to find a Bolt under sticker for better or worse. But at the very least, new Bolts still are a good deal. And if you can get one remotely approaching MSRP and you have that tax credit eligibility and maybe potentially other state rebates or incentives, this can still make a ton of sense. And hey, you get a new car out of it. New car, if you play your cards right with a base Bolt, for like not much more than 20 grand, assuming you get all the rebates and everything. Realistically, out of pocket, assuming you apply for no incentives or not factoring those into your purchase, expect to spend $27,000, $28,000 at least. $30,000 for most configurations that are available as inventory for dealers right now. So that gets into, okay, you want to spend less than that, you would do what my girlfriend Gosha did, where we showed in a video where she bought her used Bolt that I mentioned. That can be a deal because the used bolts are really cheap and they have the oftentimes very new or close to new battery. And if you're not sure about this, if it's not advertised in the listing for a used Bolt, you can go on GM's recall site, enter the VIN of the Bolt you're looking for, and see if it's had that battery service done. Do get one with the battery service done, because if it hasn't had it done yet, it's not eligible for that new battery anymore. They're just going to instead apply a software fix to take care of that fire issue. So hopefully, if you're looking for a used Bolt, it has that battery taken care of. You can find, of course, used Bolts any way you want: Auto Tempest, Auto Trader, Cars.com. There were lots of Bolts made, and there's plenty of them out there. They're all mechanically very similar. Earlier, you did have a Premier trim available on the non-EUV Bolt. Again, if you want the EUV SUV styling, the minimum model year to look for is 2021. But for the best deal, 2017, which was the first model year, and kind of like 2018 to 2019, that is the magic range of price for Bolts. My girlfriend Gosha got a 2019 Bolt. So it had some of the updated software, but it didn't have the facelift that came with the 2021 model year, which is mainly cosmetic. You can see, of course, the new one looks, slightly different with a new, fake grille in front, or lack of a fake grille. Basically, the front end got tweaked and it looks a little different with the headlights. The OG Bolt is still fine, still optioned pretty well. Many of the LTs with the comfort and convenience package are going to be fine for those of you living in cold climates. If you're worried about this not having all-wheel drive and you live somewhere where it snows, you can get winter tires. My friend and colleague Ryan ran Michelin X-Ice, which are the OE spec winter tires on a Chevy Bolt, and he did just fine in Colorado winter with those winter dedicated tires. So the options are slim because they are a small tire size. You don't have too many options just to factor in, but it's absolutely possible. I wouldn't let the all-wheel drive be a sticking point for you if that's your concern and you still want this affordable, cheap EV. The Bolt is so special. And used, again, like you can be like my girlfriend Gosha, you get it under 25 grand. It's a magic price because then you're eligible for that up to $4,000 used federal EV tax credit. So that's really nice. And that's the state of the Bolt right now. So keep looking on the market. The used ones are going to be around for a while. They're not going anywhere, but the new Bolt, you got to strike now. and I think you're not going to be paying below MSRP. Try not to pay too much above MSRP, but the reality is they're only producing them until December, so that's where we stand now. Hopefully this has been a good summary of where the Chevy Bolt stands in 2020, late 2023. 2024 is going to be a quiet year. Obviously, no new ones will really be available then. You'll still have the used market around, but other than that, we are waiting for the new Bolt. And if you're going to mention Chevy Equinox, well, that's a larger vehicle. Yes, I know GM said the price starts at $30,000. People are starting to doubt that, given that they've removed the base Blazer, which was the SUV above that. That was going to supposedly start at somewhere in like the 40 grand zone, but they have removed that trim, $45,000 they said for Blazer, and now they said, oh, that's not happening. So people are worried it would happen with Blazer. With Equinox, I could see it. So don't depend on the Chevy Equinox as a Bolt replacement. GM themselves have confirmed there is a new Chevy Bolt coming. We're just not going to see it until like 2025. And if the existing Ultium-based GM products, their current lineup of current generation vehicles is anything to go off of, it seems like they're having production issues making enough of them. So I frankly can't see how we're going to have a huge supply and a good market for buyers for these vehicles for quite a bit of time. So for the moment, Chevy Bolt is still great. New ones, you got to act now, but used ones will be around for a bit. Do shop around the market. If buying used, try to keep it under 25 grand. If buying new, try to keep it under 35 grand-ish. And if you apply for those new incentives like the federal EV tax credit, then rejoice, because that makes this hatchback such a good value still. I'm such a big fan of the Chevy Bolt. Of course, my girlfriend loves hers still. She's a big fan of her 2019 LT that she got used with that tax credit eligibility. That's been the current state of the Chevy Bolt. Let me know if you have any other questions, comments, updates, if you've been following the Bolt market in the comments. But consider this a final kind of 2023 buyer's guide for the Chevy Bolt, one of the, only affordable, really practical, daily drivable EVs on the market right now. So much of a better buy than the Nissan Leaf in the US, and more affordable still than a Kia Niro EV or a Hyundai Kona EV. Just makes so much sense, and I'm so happy it exists. Sad that it's going away for a bit, but that's where we are, and this is what you have to do if you want to buy a Bolt now, new or used. Thanks for watching. I've been Max with a Spec Guide. I'll see you in the next video.